Hey there, Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the Ion College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do to the like button. Shouts to Brandon Davies. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, it'd be awesome if you did that while you're here. Let's get into it. So much to get to after a wild Tuesday night in the sport. Two top five teams took losses at home. That's not normal. But the place to start, I think most longtime listeners of the Ion College Basketball Podcast would agree, is in Bloomington, where Mike Woodson might have hit rock bottom. The internet is FUBAR. Final score, Illinois 94, Indiana 69, inside Assembly Hall. It's a 25-point beatdown. More specifically, it's the second 25-point beatdown Indiana endured in a span of 4 days. Lost by 25 at Iowa on Saturday, then lost by 25 to Illinois on Tuesday. Fire Woodson chants filled Assembly Hall as Illinois scored more points in regulation than any visiting team had ever scored in a regulation game at Assembly Hall, and as Indiana was also losing consecutive games by 25 points for the first time since November 2008. Norlander, if you have names, provide them. But I don't remember many coaches ever bouncing back once it gets this bad. Do you?
No, this is where we got to start on Wednesday. So much on Tuesday night, and I did not think that Illinois, Indiana, all of Parrish 16 hours ago would be where we were starting, but it's where we have to. You laid it out a lot there. Woodson skipped the post-game team radio, which you don't often get, but typically when that does happen, it is a harbinger of things to come. And the press conference after, I watched the whole thing. It was all 6.5 minutes or so, and it was fine. But he said, quote, "I love our fans. I respect our fans, but it's up to me to get our players to play at a high level. That's my job, and I'm going to continue to work in that area and hope our fans will stay in there with us." I saw a note from our CBS Sports research team that Indiana had never given up 60.5 before last night, which is wild. Indiana is 0-9 in its last 9 games against ranked competition. And then I'm going to repeat a nugget I gave on, I believe, the Sunday show. Credit to Zach Osterman, who does a great job and has for a long time covering this program. 14 of the 35 losses that Woodson has in Big Ten play. He's 39-35 overall, accounting for Big Ten tournament and all that stuff. So 39-35. 14 of those 35 losses, so effectively 40%, have come by at least 15 points. And now you have back-to-back 25-point losses. It's even small stuff that's not so small, but like Illinois is 3-1 in its last 4 games at Indiana. That's Illinois. That's one of your primary rivals. You can't beat them. The only other time that Illinois even got 60 in a game this season was against Chicago State, which when I checked yesterday was the worst team at Ken Pom. So it is not going well at all. This does feel now inevitable. And what's wild is Indiana, and by inevitable, I mean a coaching change. And I'm not saying it's happening this week or next week. I don't think that's happening. I think Indiana can still, and I think it it should make the tournament. This is a 13-5 team, but 2 straight losses by 25 points. And you look at the schedule ahead: at Ohio State, at Northwestern, home to Maryland, at Purdue, at Wisconsin, home to Michigan, at Michigan State. Oh, that's the next month. How if Indiana can come out of the other side of that with more wins than losses? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 games. Can they come out of that at 4-3? They're 4-3 right now in the league. Can they go 4-3 over their next 7-game stretch? That will determine whether or not this team can get to the NCAA tournament. There's so many issues and factors here. We talked in the preseason. We talked on the Indiana shoot-around episode that the non-conference was simply not good enough. That is now coming to rear its head, because if Indiana can't manage to finish 6th or better in the Big Ten, hard for me to get there on how they're going to be a tournament team. They're projected, as I'm sure you're aware, GP, I'm actually just seeing it now because I brought up their Ken Pom page, projected to go 8-12 in the league and 17-14 overall. Will be nowhere close to the bubble if that's the case. So this does feel inevitable. It feels like the fan base. Tuesday night was the moment when, although Woodson is going to continue to coach here for the games and weeks ahead, presumably, it feels like the moment that he will not come back from. The fan base is ready to move on, and it's just a matter of when and how we get there.
You mentioned, can they go 4-3 in the next 7? I mean, maybe. I wouldn't rule anything out. It's college basketball. But according to KenPom, they are projected to be underdogs in each of their next 7 games. So to go 4-3, they're going to have to, for the next 7 games, they're going to have to create upsets. There ain't nothing we've seen lately that suggests that's in the cards. I think I'd mentioned on Sunday, we sort of touched on Indiana getting blasted by Iowa. And I'd said, I don't know how Indiana fans are feeling these days. I don't know. It hasn't entered my world lately. And then I had an Indiana fan subsequently tweet me, and it was like, most Indiana fans seem more interested in who's going to be the next coach than they are the games. And that's where we were even before last night happened. So you saw it. I mean, the images were in the videos. I mean, you didn't have to have the best hearing in the world to hear the Fire Woodson chants throughout Assembly Hall. So yeah, it's a 13-5 team, but down to 58th at KenPom, down to 60th in the net, 1-5 in quadrant 1, 1-0 in quadrant 2. So 2-5 in the first 2 quadrants. Their only quadrant 1 win is Penn State. They were 17th in the preseason AP poll. And I know that some people had concerns about the lack of shooting on the roster, the lack of obvious shooting on the roster. We discussed it on the Ion College Basketball Podcast. And now you fast forward to January 15th, and the numbers are exactly what Indiana fans who had fears, it's exactly what they feared. Indiana is shooting 31.4% from 3 on the season. That ranks 274th in the country. Only 32.4% of their shots come from 3. That ranks 330th nationally. So they spent like $5 million to build a roster and then decided to play like it's 1982. Another disappointing team is the result. Like I mentioned, they're now expected to be underdogs, according to KenPom, in each of the next 7 games. So this could get way worse before it gets better, and it likely won't get better until another person is in charge of the program.
Yeah, and it's the way it's like I pulled up this game on Peacock last night. It's over before it starts.
Yeah.
It was non-competitive. If it would be one thing if Indiana had lost, like if they had lost it at Iowa and then comes back and loses in Illinois, and both games are competitive, and one's a 3-point loss, one's a 4-point loss, and it's annoying and it's frustrating. It's like, oh, look at the trouble Indiana's in. We'd still probably be having this conversation. We wouldn't be leading the show with it. It's the nature of the past 2 losses. I mean, Illinois only had 6 turnovers in this game. Kylan Boswell went off and had one of his best games as an Illinois player, 22 points. Kasper Siakachonis, by the way, he returns in this one, and there were multiple possessions where he was kind of, doing what he wanted to do. And then there was one play in particular that was shared by multiple people that follow the sport and showed the video where transition play, Illinois doesn't get it on the first opportunity, and then they get the ball back, and it's kind of just like a half-baked, not even it's not a half-court play, it's not a transition play. Umar Abalo's defensive effort is absolutely atrocious on it, and it was a microcosm of what the issue is here. They're not getting enough out of Balo. They're not getting enough out of everyone they got in the portal collectively. And again, they're a 13-5 team with issues that extend beyond even how they're playing in the moment. They don't rank top 50 in offensive efficiency. They don't rank top 50 in defensive efficiency. They can't shoot the 3 well, and they are going to have to do over the next month what they have not done yet, and that is overachieve. The best win you mentioned is against Penn State, but they do not have a top 50 win on the schedule. And it's the latest example. And I want to be clear, because I often qualify this because I feel it deserves qualification. This is sports. There's no saying that they can't turn it around and suddenly 3 or 4 weeks from now, Indiana is like the surprise story, and look what they've been able to do. And suddenly they've won 5 of 6 or 6 of 7. And that would be a phenomenal thing to cover and see if it happened, but it doesn't look likely. And I want to say 9 out of 10 times in sports, college basketball, college football, the NFL, the NBA, whatever it may be, when you hit a point at the end of a season where it feels like your coaching situation doesn't seem tenable for the long term, but at the same time, in that very moment, it seems like it might be a year too soon to make the decision to move off a coach. This is not a scientific statement. It's just going off of, frankly, it's going off of vibes and having covered the sport. GP, I would think you would have to agree with this. 90% of the time, give or take 85%, 95, whatever. That winds up being the decision anyway in the ensuing year. Sometimes it'll last another 2 years, but you look back and you're like, was it worth it? Did we really need to do this? And that's exactly where Indiana feels where it is right now. And the irony to all of this is the Archie stuff was very much up and down. Obviously, they bring on Woodson. He's a hire that harkens back to the Bob Knight days, and a lot of Quinn Buckner and other players that have a very big say in a lot of this stuff at IU have a big voice in this. But they have not been nearly what they should be for a long, long time. That loss in 2016 in the Sweet 16 when Crean was there to North Carolina was the last time that they had a really quality team. But if you want to talk about the last time that Indiana was like high level good, you'd have to go back to 2013. Remember the upset to Syracuse when they were a 1 seed. I mean, it has just been one thing after another. They'll eventually, I do think that eventually they can and will get out of this this vortex of suck, but it is going to take yet another regime, another coaching change, and to get someone in there that can get the job done. You could have taken this head on last season. You chose not to because the context there was it was Woodson's 3rd season, didn't make the tournament 19 and 14, but in year 1 made the tournament. Year 2, which Archie never did, although he would have gone in 2020. Whatever. We're not relitigating that. Year 2, I saw him in person. They were a 4 seed. They make it to the 2nd round. They don't live up to seed expectations, but it was 3 seasons with an alum, giving him another season. I understand why that decision was made, but there were people that thought you have a number of candidates that are really good on the board here. If you're Indiana and you want to chase it, why not go after it? They opted against it. Now here's where you find yourself, and you got to climb a very steep hill to reverse this. Otherwise, you're either going to miss the tournament outright, or you're going to get into the tournament as a double-digit seed, and more likely than not even win a game when you get there.
I have strong opinions about that. First, on the vortex of suck, as you put it, as you put the vortex of suck that they've been living and dying in. I keep thinking I'm going to delete this stuff at some point, but it's just been sitting here in my file for years. I take no joy in this, but I mean, we're a college basketball podcast, kind of. And I think somewhat. And I think people need to know what we're talking about here, given that this is a blue blood program.
Lay it out.
I mean, as long as you can be a blue blood program without really ever winning anything of significance for decades.
In all seriousness, before you say what you're going to say, we had this conversation at the Final Four when Nova made there. I was like, listen, at a certain point, teams elevate and graduate to blue blood status. Duke didn't really get there, in my opinion, until they won back-to-back national championships. If you can elevate and graduate to it, you can be demoted from it. And well, I'm not going to sit here and slam the table and say Indiana can no longer be a blue blood. If you can get up there, you can fall from it. And with what you're about to say, I mean, it has been a long time. But maybe it speaks to this program's relevancy and the want to of fans, media, people that like college basketball to want to see Indiana matter and be consistent again for that to be the case. But it certainly has not been. So go ahead and inform the folks if they're unfamiliar with the data.
Bro, they won a national title when I was 10. What more do you want? They won the whole thing when I was 10. Look at me now. Think about this. Indiana fans, look at me.
I thought you were referring to 76 when you would have been 10, but I understand. 87.
Indiana fans, look at me. The last time you won a national title, I was 10 years old. Look at me now. This is outrageous. The last time you went to the Elite Eight, I had no kids. Now I got 3. One of them's grown, a foot taller than me, just about. It's an exaggeration, but look at me. Ain't finished in the top 25 at KenPom since 2016. Ain't finished ahead of Purdue in the Big Ten standings since 2016. Ain't made the Elite Eight since 2002. Ain't won a national title since 1987. Year 1 for Mike Woodson, started 30th at KenPom, finished 48th. Year 2 started 12th at KenPom, finished 30th. Year 3 started 50th at KenPom, finished 91st. Year 4 started 42nd at KenPom, currently 58th. Tom Crean's average KenPom finish in his final 6 seasons at Indiana, that was 30th, with 3 top 15 finishes. Tom Crean's final KenPom ranking was 44th. They fired him after 44th, which was just 1 year after an outright Big Ten title. Mike Woodson has been 44th, worse than 44th, in 3 of his 4 seasons in charge. I think I'm going to delete this stuff someday, but I thought that like 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I've been thinking it for a while. And as for like, should you do it when you start thinking about doing it? This is the logic Jeremy Foley, the former Florida athletic director, I think mostly made famous. Like when you start thinking about should you fire somebody, it's time to fire them and move on. I think it's especially true in the Indiana situation because there were more variables in place last season. If you do it, last season, you know who's probably your coach right now? You know. Who's coaching Indiana right now if they do it last season?
Probably Dusty May.
Probably Dusty May.
Although I will say that, Louisville being a fishbowl was also a factor in Michigan, and Indiana is just as bad. So it's not inconceivable to me that if Indiana was also open, that he wouldn't still be at Michigan. That's all.
Fine. Not inconceivable to me either.
Yeah.
But how about this? Now Indiana fans are going to have to forever think about that. Yep. And no matter what Dusty ever says about it, if you believe he could have been your coach, he ain't nothing he gonna say to make you think that's not true. So now you're gonna always have that second thing in the air. We stuck with Mike Woodson too long, and it might have cost us Dusty May, who, oh, by the way, is now at a conference rival.
Yeah,
with a top 20 team in year
it's
one.
Going to lead Wednesday's court report. By the way, Michigan is now the statistical favorite to win the Big Ten as we speak.
Think about that for a second, Indiana fans. You could have led the court report tomorrow if you'd have just done what you were supposed to do.
Not even tomorrow. There we go. Just a little bit of a tea. But as we speak about this, oh, by the way, Michigan is 11th at KenPom, top 20 in the rankings, playing two bigs on a level no other team in the country is. And the guy that you could have chased after, yes, he's doing it in your league. And in my estimation, we'll get more to this once a change is made. I can't see that being the case and him obviously leaving now that he's at Michigan.
Another name that gets brought up now, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Assuming Indiana is going to make a coaching change. Scott Drew's name I saw on social media last night. Obviously, he grew up in Indiana, about 3 hours north of Bloomington. How connected is he to that state now? I'm not sure. I believe his father now lives in Phoenix. Bryce obviously lives in Phoenix.
Yes.
I'm just not sure how much the state of Indiana or Indiana basketball means to Scott Drew in the year 2025. So if you're Indiana and you want to, as they say, make the phone call. Make the phone call. It's just a phone call. What do I care? But like, don't forget this guy has already turned down Kentucky
and Louisville in the same year. No human had ever done that. So maybe it'll happen. But
right, yeah, he's already turned down two big jobs. He's gonna have stuff named after him at Baylor. His life's pretty good. Make the phone call if you want to. But I'd also have a backup plan just in case. I'd also have a backup plan just in case.
Yeah, agreed. Well, the Hoosiers, man, they'll continue to be a compelling story no matter what happens here. Check it on your mostly college basketball podcast for the latest. But man, Tuesday was loaded. GP. We had two top 5 teams lose, and not just two top 5 teams lose. They lost at home in relatively surprising fashion. We're gonna get to that, but first, how about a word from our partners?
All right, before we get to two top 5 teams losing, it's time for the Stay or Hit segment brought to you by Chumba Casino. Whether you're chilling at home or on the move, play for the chance to redeem some serious prizes with Chumba Casino. Norlander, today, got a new addition. Today we're playing
rave reviews to how this went last week, so let's make the magic happen again. Did you say stay or hit? Because I feel like last week was hit or stay, so we got a little change up here.
It's stay or hit, Norlander. You're
talking. All right, hit me.
I've got one stay or hit segment presented by Chumba Casino under my belt, and you're already questioning me. Last week would have been the time to question me. Not on round 2.
Like last week it was hit or stay, and now I feel like it's stay or hit. I didn't know if you changed it up on me. That's all.
I felt like last week you don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Check the tapes. I might be wrong. Who the heck knows?
We're playing stay or hit. National Player of the Year candidates.
Okay.
And let's start with a dude who is currently injured. It's Janai Broome at Auburn. I know he was a National Player of the Year candidate before the ankle sprain. If you believe he's still a viable Player of the Year candidate, please tell me why.
Not telling me it's hit or stay in the dock, by the way. Just saying. Oh, if Janai Broome is still a National Player of the Year candidate? Tell you why? Because he's been now listen, we're going to get to Auburn in a second. He's been the best player on the best team for the entirety of the season. So yes, not knowing when he's going to return, but under the presumption it will be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, he is still a viable National Player of the Year candidate. And barring an unexpected delayed absence, there is nothing that is going to remove him from that conversation.
All right, now it's time to play Stay or Hit, or as you say, hit or stay, but as I say, stay or hit. Do you want to stay on Janai Broome or hit on Marquette's Cam Jones?
I will stay on Janai Broome, although, and we'll get to the Golden Eagles hopefully before the end of the show. Good performance out of him, but not the biggest player on Marquette on Tuesday night.
No.
I will stay on Janai Broome.
Do you want to stay on Janai Broome? Or do you want to hit on Kansas's Hunter Dickinson?
I will definitely stay on Janai Broome, although I will say Hunter Dickinson is third right now in the KPOI. What's the KPOI? It's the Ken Palm Player of the Year algorithm. Kansas has a huge game tonight against Iowa State. Dickinson is not even being discussed as a first-team All-American right now, and I think that's probably fair, but per Ken Palm, his impact has been much more pronounced than I think a lot of people realize. He has been an All-American this season, but I do not put him on the same tier as Janai Broome.
You hate Hunter Dickinson. Got it. Okay. Do you want to stay on Janai Broome or hit on Memphis's P.J. Haggerty?
Can I double stay? Haggerty's a good player, but he's not even in the top, in my estimation, top 6 or 7 candidates for National Player.
What does he have to do besides average all the points for?
He's got to lead the nation. He's got to lead the nation in scoring, and Memphis can't lose again in the American. That's what he's got to do. I just told you.
Well, that's not fair.
You're asking me what he's got to do. I don't make the rules, although maybe I do. It's hit or stay. Norlander makes the rules.
It sounds like you are trying to make. It sounds like you've been trying to make new rules since you woke up this morning. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
I'm double staying on Janai Broome.
That's disrespectful to PJ Haggerty and what he's doing inside FedEx Forum. Do you want to stay on Janai Broome or hit on Duke's Cooper Flagg?
This is where we hit. I knew you. Listen, well built by you. You can't hit on Cooper Flagg immediately because then what are we doing here?
What are we doing?
The game is over.
I built this with clear intentions.
Exactly. I'm going to hit on Cooper Flagg for the reasons. I feel like we haven't talked about Cooper Flagg on the podcast in a long time.
Not enough.
I will hit on Cooper Flagg, who Duke won on Tuesday night against Miami. It was a complete evisceration, as expected. Shouts to Concanipple. He wound up having a good game, but Flagg specifically, he logged just 28 minutes, 13 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 6 turnovers. Get your game up, Cooper Flagg, but I will hit on him for now over Janai Broome for National Player of the Year.
That was the Stay or Hit segment brought to you by Chumba Casino. Ready to dive into some excitement? Chumba Casino is where it's at. It's free to play. So just jump right in and explore over hundreds of social casino style games with fresh new releases every single week. Play anytime, anywhere, and enjoy free daily login bonuses and an amazing welcome offer. Moving on, 2 upsets in the SEC on Tuesday night. Final score, number 21 Ole Miss 74, number 4 Alabama 64. In Tuscaloosa. Final score, Missouri 83, number 5 Florida 82 in Gainesville. Norlander, which of those surprising results surprised you more?
To me, it was Missouri over Florida. What about you?
I think Missouri over Florida. I thought Missouri had established itself as a legitimate NCAA tournament team. Mm-hmm. Like if you'd have asked me yesterday, is Missouri going to be in the tournament? I would have said yes, even before the win at Florida. I did not think Missouri was the type of team that was going to go build a double-digit lead in Gainesville and then hold on for the victory to improve to 14-3. They now got wins over Kansas and Florida. Their only losses are top 20 teams, Auburn, Memphis, Illinois. I moved Missouri into the top 25 and won this morning at number 25. Awesome stuff from Dennis Gates after his program obviously went winless in the SEC last season.
Missouri fans, shouts to you folks. This has got to feel really damn good right now. The resume is particularly strong. This was the first road win over a top 5 team for Mizzou since 2012. What was wild is when Florida beat Tennessee 73-43. So 43 points in 40 minutes for Tennessee last week. Number 1 Tennessee. Missouri got 35 on Florida in the first 10 and a half minutes last night. Just a complete script flip. It was also Missouri's first win away from home this season. Notable. Caleb Grill had 6 trays, finished with 22 points. Mark Mitchell, 15 points, 8 rebounds. Good stuff out of the Tigers there. Gators a little bit weird. By the way, a note, and I mentioned this on HQ last night. I hope the coordinator of officials for the SEC and the league in general, like, can we get a hold on this situation here, like, immediately? Because there have been a number of, this is the best conference in the country, and there have been a number of games that have taken more than 2 hours and 20 minutes to play as a result of fouls and reviews. Just, I understand if it happens here and there, and I am not prone to really go after officials because, frankly, that's not compelling. I'm not interested in it. Every so often, when it's warranted, we'll do it. But I can't help but notice that there's a lot of SEC games that are taking too long to play, too many fouls, 6-7 monitor review trips in the final minutes. Like, come on, GP, have you noticed this as well? Like, it's becoming a pattern specifically in this conference, and don't let this become a talking point about your league when you're having the best season ever. Don't let it happen. It happened multiple times again on Tuesday night. Let's clean it up.
I can't sit here and say I have noticed that it's happening more in the SEC than it is other places, but I have noticed it's happening everywhere, it feels like. And the end of games have become, I don't want to say unbearable, but it's something less than what they should be. We had it in Marquette DePaul last night. At the end of regulation, there's a transition bucket, and it's a very close block goaltend call, right? They call it a goaltend on the floor. They go to the monitor. We're watching the replay. I'm in the bullpen. You know, we're surrounded by people. You know what it's like. Mm-hmm. And I watched it twice, and I said, there's no way they can review that. Hey, what did they call it again on the floor? Goaltend. Okay, then we're going to overtime. That's a goaltend. This is done. They looked at it for another 5 minutes.
No,
and it was like, you're not going to see. I already told you what you're going to do. It is too close to overturn. The call will stand. I figured this out 5 minutes ago. Why can't you? That's the stuff that's frustrating. We know what I wish there was a time limit on how long you can look at that. And if you can't figure it out in 60 seconds, then it's just too bad. We're going to go back and play. But, like, you can't sit there for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes looking at something that I saw 5 or 6 minutes ago, and you ain't going to see nothing different than that. There was never a chance they were overturning whatever call they had made on the floor. Why are we standing here this long?
Agreed. Good call by you on the Marquette DePaul stuff. That was another one. Feels inevitable this will be brought up again on the show later this season. I hope not. But we got a time squeeze, so we can move on. But I had to mention it. Ole Miss 76, Bama 64. Malik Dia 21 points, 19 rebounds.
He's great.
He was very, very good. And for Alabama to be held to 64 points on its home floor, folks, this team was leading the country in scoring, 91.1 points per game, had the number 2 per possession offense in the country going in, had won 7 straight games against Mississippi prior to last night. So the first win for the Rebels since 2018 against the Crimson Tide. And I tell you what, they did it again with the turnover battle, because the Ole Miss 4th in the country in turnover margin, more than basically 6.5 per game overall. And it got it done here. Bama had more turnovers in this game than made field goals, 21-20. Credit to Chris Beard and that staff for turning in just a remarkable game. Ole Miss only had 7 turnovers to Bama's 21. That came up big. Some historical notes here. It was the first time ever that program won on the road against a top 5 team ever. Mississippi had never won against a top 5 team in a hostile road environment in the history of its program. It was its first top 5 win for Ole Miss since 2001 when they beat then Florida. I know Bama was dealing with like bumps and bruises, like Darian Reed, Cliff Amore played, but he's not fully healthy. But still, like 64 points on your home floor. The Rebels had 23 more shots than the Crimson Tide, 70-47 in this game. Nearly as surprising as Missouri over Florida. But yeah, just 2 top 5 teams not only to lose, but to lose at home. Noisy night, and that was near the top of the list, GP.
Yeah, for Ole Miss up next, a big one on Saturday at Mississippi State. Mississippi State, of course, taking a loss at Auburn on Tuesday night. And it doesn't get any easier for Alabama. They take a loss at home. And this is we've touched on this, and I think
lose against the team you're not supposed to lose to. You got to play a team that you can't win.
Now look. You lose a home game that you're supposed to win, and now you got to go to Kentucky. Good luck inside Rupp Arena. Up next, we'll do the Wednesday whip around, touch on some other notable developments from Tuesday. First, let's get one more word from our partners.
Sail GP is coming to Auckland, New Zealand. The City of Sails will be expecting a performance from the Black Foils and their driver, Peter Burley.
You see that?
Sail GP?
Sail GP. Hold on. Very important the way you spell sail here, isn't it?
Oh yeah, okay.
I mean, I don't want to be up for auction.
If again, to the overwhelming majority of people that are listening to this podcast, on the YouTube edition, there was a promo for something called Sail GP, SAIL, not SALE. So
maybe I need to go to Auckland. Maybe I need to get on down to Auckland.
I'd love to get to Auckland sometime.
Man, I wouldn't mind spending a couple of days in Auckland. I'll tell you that. All right, Norlander. Yeah. Illinois smacked Indiana. Ole Miss upset Alabama. Missouri upset Florida. Got it. What else do we need to know from Tuesday?
I want to get to the SEC, but first I'm going to give some love to DePaul. 85-83. We just mentioned it, but just gets to overtime. DePaul had it. The whistle was whatever.
That should have been a foul at the buzzer in overtime.
Whistle was. Here's the deal. On one level, when you're a program that has not, this is the 39th consecutive regular season loss for DePaul in the Big East. 39 in a row. They have not beaten a Big East opponent in the regular season in 728 days. January 18th, almost 2 years ago today, 2023, was the last time DePaul got a win over a league foe. And when you don't know how to win and make the plays you need to because you're so accustomed to losing, it can be hard to turn that corner. So some of it was that. Some of it was David Joplin going for 30 points and playing his best game of the season, maybe his best game as a Marquette player. But also, I have to imagine that Chris Holtmann and his staff were fuming mad over the whistle they got at home against a good Marquette team. If you're Marquette, projecting again to be like a 2-seed level team, which they've been the past couple of years, and you're going to get yourself caught in a game or two against an inferior opponent, and how you respond to those can really suggest what you can be ultimately if you don't blow those opportunities. Marquette didn't, but man, that was an inconsistent chirp from the officials, I thought.
My little homie from Memphis, Cam Jones, tried to end it at the end of regulation. It was a deep look, but it was a pretty clean look, and it looked good out of his hand.
Yeah.
Missed it. We went to overtime. A lot of points in overtime. And I don't know if it actually impacted the outcome of the game, but DePaul should have been shooting free throws at the end of the first overtime. The officials followed their whistles, and that's one of those where it's the never-ending debate. I don't like it when officials impact the end of games. Well, the way to impact the end of a game is not only by blowing the whistle. Sometimes it's by swallowing the whistle. They swallowed the whistle in the final seconds of overtime, and DePaul did not get the opportunity it otherwise would have received.
Yeah, I agree. Tough loss for DePaul. Marquette, no such thing as a bad road win, and especially in league play, for sure. Around the SEC, I'll give you all the results, and then you take it where you want. LSU, 78, Arkansas, 74. It is another loss for John Calipari. Arkansas is 0-4. Arkansas is 10-1 this season when it gets to 75 points. It was 1 point shy, and it's 1-5 when it fails to do so. Aduthiero had 17 or more in his 3 of his past 4 games, just 13 last night, and just not enough overall. I will give a shout to Cam Carter of LSU, who is one of the breakout guys in the SEC after leaving Kansas State. We'll get to Kansas State in just a second. Good for LSU to get off the shine, get its first league win. Arkansas is, we talked about it in the last show, but now it is not projecting to make the NCAA tournament. To be a year 1 bust under John Calipari. Auburn beats Mississippi State 88-66. There's no Janai Broom. It does not matter. This was a significant result. Chaney Johnson steps in, scores 17 as a starter in substitution of Broom. Chad Baker-Mazara had 20. Auburn is 5-1 this season against ranked opponents. Its only loss is at Duke. It's 8-1 in quad one, has the most quad one wins of any team in the country. Mississippi State's in the middle of a tough stretch. All these teams, again, in the SEC, they're going to do it, but they have a 4-game stretch against ranked opponents. This is game number 2. And Mississippi State was trying to pull off a win over a number 1 team and only has 2 in its history, the last one being in 1996. Just a good showing from, if you're an Auburn fan, and you teed me up on the Tuesday show, I said they would win. I didn't think they would have too much issue. That wound up being the case. And then A&M loses 81-69 against Kentucky on the road. That's notable because A&M last season scored 97 points both times it played Kentucky. Here it only managed 69, and Kentucky was able to get over 80 against an A&M team that had been showing some good resistance to a lot of teams. I mean, this is the number 2 defense in the SEC, Texas A&M, and UK gets 81, all the same. Jackson Robinson at 22. Otega Owe goes for 11. He's the only UK player this season to get to double figures in every single game. He just every night guy, man. Quiet MVP if you want to define him that way. Kentucky now 5-0 against ranked competition. Those were the notable SEC results. What's your takeaway, GP?
Everything I would say about Kentucky, I've already said. Incredible story. Another good win.
Piling them though. They keep piling them. I mean, they didn't get picked off the way some others did, which I thought was notable on Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, I believe I've now moved. Let me double check it before I misquote myself. But I've moved Kentucky up to they're in the top 6 of the top 25 and won again. Incredible what Mark Pope is doing. I think, and this is what complicates stuff for John Calipari at Arkansas. Like right now, Mark Pope is, I believe, 5-0 against ranked opponents, and John Calipari is 0-4 in the SEC. It's just everything Kentucky fans like. This could not be going more perfectly for them. And I know not all Kentucky fans are sitting around wishing ill for John Calipari at Arkansas. Many of them are just above that and don't move that way. But I know some of them enjoy it, just like some Memphis fans would enjoy every time something didn't go well at Kentucky. And this really is not going well. It's going unimaginably bad. And we don't have to spend too much time on it. But when I talk to coaches around the sport, like John needs to surround himself with some people who can help him. Right now, he doesn't appear to be like he needs help. At this point in his career, he needs some help, some fresh ideas, whatever. He doesn't need NIL help. They gave him that. He's one of the highest paid coaches in America. He's got one of the best NIL budgets in America, and his team is 0-4 in the SEC. That's a problem. With A&M, just no Wade Taylor again. We don't know.
Yeah, no, like yeah.
I wish we whatever. We don't have to. They don't have to give us more clarity. But like, is he going to return tomorrow? Is he returning in a month? Right. It's a lower body injury. We don't know if it's a knee, an ankle, hamstring. We don't know what it is. He wasn't available. That's obviously a huge factor. He's their best player. But in lack of that, I just don't know what to make of A&M at this point. Plus, it was a road game. And then Auburn. I mean, that was the big headline is going to be Ole Miss beating a top 5 team on the road, Missouri beating a top 5 team on the road. I could argue that what Auburn did to Mississippi State was perhaps just as impressive given the context. Earlier in the week, I explained in the top 25 and 1 why I thought Auburn should be number 1 in the absence of Jani Broome, but that I didn't think they were really the best team in the country without their best player, just because I don't think that's usually the way this stuff works. Updated opinion, maybe they are. I mean, they just beat the hell out of a top 15 team. Yes.
Without Jani Broome. Like maybe they are the best team in the country even without Jani Broome. Again, I'd stop short of that probably, but when you could go out and beat a top 15 team by 22 with your best player in a boot, street clothes, that's impressive. That was as impressive as anything that happened on Tuesday night, I thought.
Another thread between some results on Tuesday. Indiana loses, Arkansas loses, Kansas State loses. What do those 3 teams have in common? They were 3 of the 5 biggest spenders in the portal, based off of conversations with sources I had and people around the industry. That's just regarded of how those teams built their rosters and what they allegedly paid in NIL deals to get players. IU, Arkansas, K-State certainly in the top 5, and they are all underperforming. K-State's the worst of them all. They lose 61-57 at home to Texas Tech. Tech, by the way, is 13-4 in its last 17 games against Kansas State, so they've owned that side of it. And shouts to Texas Tech and Grant McCasland after a tough loss to Iowa State over the weekend. They come back and they went on the road. Texas Tech has won 5 consecutive road games dating back to last season in league play. Meantime, Kansas State is 7-9, and it is an absolute bust. We've talked about disappointing teams to the variety of of Arkansas and a slew of others, but Kansas State has to be near, if not at the top of the list. This is a sub 500 team. It is not working. It wasn't just Coleman Hawkins, but he was the big headline in getting the portal for a lot of money, and it's not working whatsoever.
And we were in studio with Brent Stover, proud Kansas State graduate, last night, so he's living and dying with it. And it's not even that they lost again. Like, everything about it was just sad. First off, the building's empty, and I know, or at least I believe, students are out.
How about this? It wasn't filled.
It looked not like the octagon of doom
octagon of gloom,
octagon of empty. So that's not the way it's supposed to look, right? Yeah. And then the game, it looked like they had no heart. Like, they didn't even score in the last 4 or 5 minutes. Like, Coleman Hawkins took a bad shot, then missed an easy one. There was a loose ball situation where he was going out of bounds, and for $2 million, I'd love to see him dive. Like, hey, can you dive for a ball for $2 million? Nothing. Possession the other way. And Roy Hibbert brought it up last night. This is the type of thing that happens to professional athletes, and it's now happening to college athletes. When people know how much money you make and you're not performing to the level at which they think you should for that money, they remind you how much money you're making. So here's Roy Hibbert at halftime last night. Coleman Hawkins has 2 points. Roy's like, is he getting $1 million a point per half? He's like, man, I had some good contracts, but $2 million for what this guy's giving you. You got to deliver more. And so that's where he's at as an individual. It's where Kansas State is at a program. And it's, I didn't expect this. I thought Kansas State would be good this year.
Dude, that one's on me. I was wrong. I had K-State top 25 in the preseason. Kansas State started 6-2. It's 7-9. Lost, do the math there. It's gone 1-7 in its past 8 games. And it's going to get worse. They're at Kansas, at Baylor, home West Virginia, home Oklahoma State, then at Iowa State, and then at Arizona State for the next 6 on the road. This is unfortunately going to get worse. It is a bust. The irony is that Jerome Tang had the Arkansas job if he wanted it. He did not want it. Arkansas is no better at just sliding doors. What could have been? Who the heck knows? Let's keep it moving because I know we're squeezed on time. GP's got his Memphis show in just a few minutes here. Also in the Big 12, Arizona. This was a late one. I cashed in with about 5 minutes to go. Arizona was going to win it. 81-70 over ranked Baylor. 7 consecutive wins for Tommy Lloyd's Wildcats after a 4-5 start. At one point, this was the most disappointing team in the country. We said it on the show, and now they're getting it done. It's not surprising that they're getting it done, but the early returns on Arizona was like, wow, will this really be like a really random, massively disappointing season? It's not that now. 11-5. Baylor was never in this game whatsoever. It's not a deep team. It wasn't equipped to be able to run with Arizona. Henry Visar again plays well. 19 points off the bench. He is really emerging. Caleb Love had actually been playing very well as of late. He didn't in this game, but they didn't need it whatsoever. Jaden Bradley had 13. KJ Lewis off the bench, who I think might be the emotional center of that team. He goes for 11. So a good win for them. Before we get to the rest of the stuff, and I know Louisville fans want a little mention. You're getting it. Don't worry. But did you bump Zona into your top 25 and 1 yet? Because I was watching the show. And Zerbiak told you should, and then I missed what you said after. But judging off of that reaction, I was like, I don't think he's going to do it. Did you do it or no?
I did not, and it's only because when you look at the bodies of work, I think Missouri's is superior right now. And
but would you say? Sorry to interrupt. Would you say that Arizona is playing like a top 25 team right now? Because I actually would, even if the body of the work isn't there. I would say they register right now as a top 25 team.
Well, they've won 7 straight, just pounded Baylor. They've gone from 4-5 to whatever the number is on that 11-5. Yeah. Wally was like, you and Norlander on the pod gave up on Arizona. We didn't give up on Arizona as much as we just sort of noted. Can you believe they're 4-5? They were 4-5.
It was completely fair in the context of when we had the conversation, of course.
I know Wally's just a real hater sometimes.
He does. He loves digging in on that.
Wally's just a real hater sometimes. He's a mercenary. He'll turn on you. Wally's a real hater sometimes. They've settled into more resembling what I thought they would be. I considered them for the top 25 and 1. I removed Baylor. I moved Missouri in on the strength of that 14-3 record. But Arizona is right there. And if somebody else who's stupid enough to rank basketball teams every morning had them ranked this morning, I would not protest that.
Okay, we can close on Louisville. Before that, I want to rip through just the other relevant scores. New Mexico lost by 1 at San Jose State. Man, it has these clunkers every year. They are building a weird NCAA tournament resume. They were on the precipice of having their best start since like 78, 79, 77, 78, something like that. That season, that was the first year they actually started seeding the tournament. And New Mexico is like the equivalent of a 2 seed that season, but they take a loss there. USC beat Iowa coming off the destruction of Indiana, and USC couple good wins that have been pulled together here. They're now 11-6. Iowa falls to 12-5. Iowa has, by the way, not beaten 3 straight high major teams in a full year. We'll see if they can change that over the next month or so. Wisconsin beat Ohio State 70-68. Greg Gard got his 200th win. A little bit of a rough watch, but Bucky's now 14-3 with an LA road swing coming. Ohio State's 10-7, and it will need a repeat of last year's down the stretch win to make the tournament. In the Big East, Xavier won 69-63 over Nova. They came back in doing so. Nova's now lost 2 straight after only losing 1 game between November 25th and January 10th. 2 straight losses for the Wildcats. And then St. John's Georgetown was a really fun watch as well. Man, just there were a ton going on. These Tuesday nights have been awesome this season. There was so much happening last night. This is another good one that kind of gets buried in the mix, but Johnny 6-1 in the Big East for the first time since 98-99. Georgetown getting there. Good signs, but not beating the upper end teams in the conference. But we'll see if Cooley continue to build it. That was a good result for them. We'll close out on Louisville. 7 straight wins. This was completely lost in the mix, but Cards fans want their love, and we're going to give it to you. 85-61 victory at Syracuse. We'll save this Q stuff for another time, but it is as bad as it's been in 40, 50 years at Syracuse right now. Louisville went 5-35 the past 2 seasons in the ACC. It now has 6 wins this season alone, has done a great about face in season. Pat Kelsey, not with the full roster, not with the healthy roster.
Hot wife, though. Hot wife. Healthy kids. Hot wife. That's all you need in this world.
Roster. And credit to them. 13-5, moving on up in the ACC, continuing to get things done. It wasn't even close. They have won 4 straight road games. Now, granted, Florida State, Virginia, Pitt, Syracuse. Pitt could be a tournament team. The other 3 are not. Whatever, man. Louisville fans, if you want to be cruising on cloud 9 right now because you got a 13-5 team that has 1 loss since December 8th, more power to you. It was a result that was mixed in the middle of a lot of other bigger, more meaningful stuff, but I did want to give you love here because that is not having the disappointing loss is a significant progression, and Kelsey's done a really nice job, so credit to him, credit to that program. They've got a really nice chance at making the NCAA tournament. I said it on the pod. I was wrong. I didn't think that was the case a month ago, and now they've completely changed the thing.
All right. Before we get out of here real quick, let's look ahead next 2 nights. On Wednesday, tonight, we got a triple header, CBS Sports Network. I'll be in studio. We got a 8:10 tip-off show at 6:30 Eastern, followed by George Mason at Dayton at 7 Eastern, 9 Eastern, Rhode Island at Loyola Chicago, 11 Eastern, number 22 Utah State at UNLV. Elsewhere around the country, good one. Number 9 Kansas at number 2 Iowa State. Good one. Number 23, Georgia at number 6, Tennessee. Texas at Oklahoma. On Thursday, got another triple header on CBS Sports Network. I'll be in studio again. 7 o'clock Eastern, Hofstra at Towson. 9 Eastern, UTEP at Liberty. 11 Eastern, the Zags are on air. Number 16, Gonzaga at Oregon State. Elsewhere on Thursday, number 18, Memphis at Temple. Number 20, Michigan at Minnesota. Maryland at Northwestern. Rutgers at Pinnacle Bank. Norlander, what you looking forward to?
Most recent, then we'll go back to Wednesday real quick. Gonzaga, Oregon State. Oregon State's been solid, and that's Gonzaga on our air is cool, and that's a function of the former Pac-12 teams having a 2-year stay in the WCC, so that's kind of cool. And Gonzaga has not played at Oregon State in a long time. I don't have it in front of me, but it's been a hot minute. Gonzaga long ago phased Oregon State out of its non-conference scheduling. It's been decades, so I'm interested to see that team in that building. Georgia, Tennessee is certainly intriguing. Just want to see how Georgia shows up on the road in that spot tonight. Texas at Oklahoma, both those teams in need of a win. That's a late tip, 10 Eastern on SEC Network. But it is Kansas at Iowa State. Come on now. This is the game. And the thing to watch for here is that Kansas has been outrageously good on defense the past 3 games. 48, 55, and 40 allowed in his past 3 wins. And it's the lowest I saw this written by Mike Lepresti, longtime sports writer out of Indiana. The 88 points, quote, the 88 points allowed in consecutive road matchups are the fewest for the Jayhawks since 1951. Well, that all happens as they go on the road to play against Iowa State, and an Iowa State team that is not just 14-1, but has a top 10 offense, has been really, really good this season on that end of the floor and routinely cracking 80 points. So what wins out at Hilton Coliseum tonight? This is an incredible matchup. I've got a note here before we get out of here, GP. Bill Self and TJ Otzelberger in top 10 games in their history. Here's the difference in it. Bill Self right now, I got it. Here it is. Bill Self is 53-26 all time when he coaches in a top 10 matchup. So both teams are ranked in the top 10 at the time of the game, regardless of NCAA tournament or regular season. A number of those did happen in the tournament, of course. So 53-26. First of all, insane winning percentage. Just another one of those stats that's absurd. To win 53 times and to 26 losses when you're playing a top 10 team is nuts. TJ Otzelberger, this will be just the 7th time he's been involved in a top 10 game. He is 2-4, but he gets this one at home. Iowa State, ranked number 2, never been this high in the AP poll in its history. That's a great, great, great Wednesday night game, and almost certainly will lead the show when we go on Friday.
All right, let's call that a show. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Terry Teagle, legend, Huck Larnell. Thank you guys once again for watching, listening to the Ion College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So please do that. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.